Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. What an interesting week it's been with so much in the media between royal events and political events and just, extra things happening with COVID and more of a rollout of vaccines and people some agree with it and some don't. It's just been a very controversial mixed bag this week. So it's really interesting to say when we're in the time of Pisces, how all these different variations or different things that become important to us all, and each and every one of us has a little story to tell about what we think is the most important thing to us. So it's just an interesting time is what I'm going to say. So this week we're going to work with the Secrets of Tarot cards, which is the sister deck to the Simply Tarot cards, and this week we're working with the Three of Wands. It's the card of travel over land or surveying your kingdom. Now, it's really interesting as certain areas are starting to open up a little bit more with COVID. We're starting to find that we can have a little bit more travel than what we could maybe this time last year or pretty close to this time last year. So it's for many of us, we're venturing out to the shops and back to normal life a little bit more than what we have been. So I see this as a very positive card that adds weight to that the fact that we are able to open up and take a little bit more control of our day-to-day life. So in that way, we are surveying our kingdom. We're looking at where we can go, what we can do next, what is going to become our new normal. Are we going to be able to visit some of our favourite places? Are we going to be able to take that holiday or just even a day trip by car somewhere to nurture our souls again? And I think that's been one of the major things that people have overlooked. And I know, look, there's been a fair bit of talk about our mental health during these lockdowns and open up and lockdowns and whatevers, but I don't think anybody's really touched on much about the soul and what the soul needs. And sometimes our soul needs feeding and nurturing too. And things that are good for your soul are things like being able to go to the ocean and stick your toes in and paddle in the water, or go into nature, or just, go and sit under a tree, or go to your favourite spot, your favourite picnic spot. And a lot of these things have been excluded from our day-to-day lives in the last 12 months because of different restrictions in different locations around the world. And as one part's open, another part's shut, and it's been just a very confusing time. So in a sense, our soul has taken a battering. And this leads me into what I'm going to talk about this week astrologically, because I think that our souls need a little bit of nourishment at this time. Now, we are in the Pisces time of the year, which is the final sign of the zodiac before we start the zodiac new year in Aries shortly. But the first situation I want to talk about in Pisces is the part of fortune. Now, this is what's known as an Arabian part. It's not known as a planet or a luminary. It's where we're supposed to find our part of fortune. Now, people think of fortune and they think, yeah, beauty, we've got money coming. Fortune isn't always about money or what money can buy. It's where we find the fortune within ourselves of what makes us happy, what feeds our soul, what brings us peace, what brings us something that is our own personal fortune. For me, it's about helping people. I really do find in this line of work, that's the greatest gift of all to me, is when someone says, thank you, you've been a great help, or that's given me a different perspective, a different way of looking at it. Now I feel like I've got a little bit more positivity in my life. So for each and every one of us, it's a different type of fortune that we find. Some people seek money, some people seek a new car or a boat or a bigger house or whatever the case may be. But I think we should all be looking for some form of spiritual or soul nourishment, or that being our part of fortune. And at the moment, we have a lot that we can soak in. As restrictions, as I said, are lifting in a lot of places around the world, we maybe need to go back and get in touch with something that fills our soul up, that gives our soul some nourishment, whether it's that walk on the beach or a picnic in the park or going to visit your favourite spot, or even just visiting or having connection with people that you haven't had the opportunity to for a while. If that fills your soul, then that's good. So it's a time of really delving deep into our soul and seeing what we can nourish in ourselves, as it's been a very difficult 12 months. And we're certainly not out of the woods yet. We've still got a long way to go with COVID. I don't think, we're going to see the back of COVID anytime soon. Even with a vaccine, I think there's still going to be, it's swimming around in the the masses of people somewhere along the line. It's just people won't become as sick and we won't have these restrictions in our lives. So we've all got to adjust to things that are happening in our lives. So moving on we've got in the Pisces energy this week, we've got Venus, the planet of love and affection, is actually holding hands with the sun. So Venus is where we look for love, or the things that give us pleasure and the things that give us enjoyment in our lives that make our hearts sing. Now, when it's conjunct or holding hands the sun just means which zodiac sign is where we get our ego and our drive from. So we're in the Pisces time of the year. So this is the time of the year where I think we can sort of really focus on our mental and emotional well-being. We can also stop and take a breath and say, okay, what have I achieved in this last 12 months? What has been the lessons here? What can I take out of this and take forward with me in the next 12 months? And it's been a time of a little bit of soul searching, but more about of just sitting on the couch and just having a breather and saying, wow, you know, we've accomplished this, and hasn't it been a mighty 12 months? Now, the sun is also conjunct or holding hands the planet Neptune, which rules Pisces. So this is the planet of creativity. Neptune can also be the planet of illusion and delusion. And the biggest person we deceive in our lives is usually ourselves, because we don't want to look squarely at a situation, or we're not ready to, or maybe the pieces to the puzzle aren't there. And a lot of astrologers talk fondly about the Neptunian fog. It's sort of like wandering around in a fog trying to find your way out of the maze. And all of a sudden the fog lifts and you see everything very clearly. Now, in that period of time when we are in the Neptunian fog, this is when I think we get our greatest creativity, or we get some light bulb moments, some different ways of looking at things, different ways of looking at a solution to a situation, or maybe start to get a glimmer of hope about what's on the horizon for the future. So please don't waste this time. Allow yourself the time to sit there and contemplate your navel and do nothing for a little bit of a time, even if it's only for 5 minutes out of your busy day. Allow your body to recharge, to nurture your soul, to start to sort of tap into sort of some of the amazing creativity that we all have. Some of us are more creative than others. I didn't necessarily consider I was a creative type of person. I always thought I was a head type of person, always in my head thinking. But we all have a certain amount of creativity. It doesn't mean we can sing and dance and paint a picture, but we can be creative in many different ways. So tap into your creative energy. So we also have the moon, the emotional planet, which changes signs every 2.5 days. He or she, whichever way you want to look at it, most people term the moon as a she, conjunct or holding hands Saturn, the planet of discipline. Now, what this means to me is that our emotions now are starting to be levelled out a little bit. Yes, we can have some light bulb moments as far as thoughts and more in our head as far as emotions than in our tummies, but it's also saying it's giving it a positive, direct, disciplined approach to how we use these emotions and not letting us get overly emotional. We're starting to be more rational in the way that we're approaching the emotional side of life. Now, Saturn is also conjunct or holding hands the planet of Jupiter, the planet of opportunity and luck and expansion. So Saturn here is bringing some discipline to those great new ideas. Instead of running away with ourselves and getting too excited and forgetting the minute details that we need to do as well, Saturn's giving us that discipline to have the balance of both. Finally, Jupiter is conjunct Mercury, the planet of communication. Now, this is really interesting because this is where we get all our thoughts, our inspirations, our light bulb moments, our ideas from. So there's lots of stuff going on still in our head at the moment. But it's a time where I think these sort of ideas need to be documented. They're not necessarily maybe the time we need to act. Yes, we need to harness this energy, put the thoughts down on paper or in your tablet and sort of let them grow, let them develop. And finally, we still have Mercury, I was going to say. Pluto, the planet of transformation, is still sitting in Capricorn. Now, Pluto's been here since 2008, just before the global financial crisis. Now, isn't it interesting that Pluto is still sitting in Capricorn as we go into our COVID crisis now? And, you know, we've had so many crises to deal with in this last 10 or so years that it's sort of no sooner do we come out of one that we go into another sort of crisis. Now, yes, we can blame Pluto for this because Pluto's trying to help us completely transform the way that we look at our lives, from big business and governments right down to the little people, the you and I's of the world. So it's been a very interesting, turbulent, and exciting time as Pluto has worked his way through Capricorn and asked all of us to look at many, many different things in our world, from global warming to climate change to how we process money, how we deal with money. We've gone from sort of utilising cash mostly to now plastic cards, and we don't even see the money anymore. So I sometimes wonder, how do we teach the little people of the world how to value money when everything's done by electronic transfer and plastic cards? But I suppose that's for another show. So it's just been a very, very interesting time astrologically, and it's been a great time to be alive. And on that note, we're going to talk with Michelle in Eva
Aloha.
Beach in Hawaii. How are you, Michelle?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you.
You have a question?
Faith is
I have a question
amazing.
I can
Healthy
work
and
with,
safe.
please. You have a question I can work with, please, Eva?
Yeah, I was
Michelle,
wondering. Well, I have. Do you know? I was wondering if you see my son, Rylan, getting into a private school that he applied for, Kamehameha School.
Do you mind repeating that for me, sweetie?
I was wondering if you see my son, Rylan, getting into Kamehameha Schools. It's a private school for Hawaiian children.
Oh, okay. Yes, sure. Okay, let me tune into that for you. Look, I do believe you're going to be successful, but I do believe you've got to really put up a fight for this. It's like you've got to put up the best application that you can. And even if you sort of get knocked back at the beginning, I want you to apply again. I want you to ask why. What part of the criteria didn't we meet? And it's sort of like, by that persistence of you not giving up on the dream for your son, that will enable you to get your wishes, that he will get in there and he will thrive. It's really interesting because as much as I know it's your dream to give your son the best education that you can, but I also feel it's your son's dream to want to go to this school. Do you know, it's sort of like he feels it's almost as if it's his destiny that he needs to attend this school. And I don't often see that with children. They sort of tend to go along with what we think is best for them, and, you know, they go willingly or begrudgingly. But with your son, I see a completely different energy. It's like in his soul, he knows this is the right path for him. I'm not saying that.
Yes.
I wanted to clear with what I'm saying, because what I'm getting with your son, even though he's a very old soul and he's very wise, it's like he's still living in the correct age group for his age. You know what I mean? Like if he's 12, he's still living like a 12-year-old, but he has this other layer or layers of wisdom that sort of come out when it's appropriate. Now, with that, what I want to suggest to you is, don't try and stop that. Don't try and encourage it. Just let it be natural, because by doing that and don't go, oh, where'd that come from? You know, just sort of try not to overreact to something brilliant that might come out of his mouth and, you know, these pearls of wisdom. That way he will develop this skill, this natural past life knowledge quicker than he would if we try and force it in any way. He's such an amazing young man. I mean, you know, I get a young man with such compassion, but yet at the same time I get a young man that's so focused and can be cold if need be, but can also be warm and generous when need be. It's like he can put himself into any mould that is necessary. You must be so incredibly proud of this young man.
I am. And this past year with the pandemic has been really hard on a lot of children. Mm-hmm. So
yes,
it's you know, he has been learning from home on the, you know, via the computer. Mm-hmm. So it's different not being in person, and it changed a lot of things. His, you know, he's a people person, so not being around people is hard. But
I think that's already the same for a lot of children. Yes.
Yes, and he already he applied. He already interviewed. He did everything that he's supposed to do. We're just waiting on the decision, which comes at the end of this month.
Right.
He gets accepted to that. So my daughter's there right now in that school.
Well, that's a blessing then. If your daughter's already there, that's got to sort of open the door up a little bit easier for him. But what I was going to say, if I can just jump back to you saying it very hard for him to to learn, on a device at home without the social contact of other people and other children particularly. I think this was also, in a strange sort of way, I'm going to say, part of his development. I'm not saying COVID was, created just so he could learn another part of his lessons, but I'm just saying there has to be a reason for this. And it's not just children that have struggled with it, it's been adults too. And it's because we weren't wired that way. It was, had we gradually moved into that, we would have adapted and adjusted. It was just one day life was normal and the next day everything went bang shut and we were bewildered. So, it's interesting because even though he struggled with that, he struggled in one way but didn't in another way. It's like it taught him how to quickly adapt and mould himself to a new situation. And I think also gave him time to understand that he wasn't the only one. So I think that was really important too, because this is going to be part of, in a sense, his training, if you want to put it that way. But when he becomes a grown-up and he goes out into the world and, he's going to have a very unique role. There's going to be, he's going to be a person that's going to be one of those people that you look back in history and say, well, that person had a monumental imprint on life and where things are going, And that's why I'm saying this is so important, that you don't sort of try and force his development in any way with what I was talking about with this past life wisdom, because it needs to percolate along and develop at its own rate. And there'll be times where there's growth spurts and then there'll be time where there's absolutely nothing. And this is all part of it. So it's just like we've got to keep him trying to be the child he is at his appropriate age now, and then not get, too excited when he drops some pearler of wisdom that shocks us all in a positive way. But, we've got to treat it as being normal. I don't want him to become self-conscious of him being able to see or hear or sense things or know things ahead of every other teenager or whatever the case may be, because then he will just automatically try and block it. So it's interesting because, even your daughter has natural abilities to want to help people. It's sort of like it runs in the family. But it's sort of like they're both going to be on very, very different paths. And I'm not saying one's more unique or special than the other. They both have a very individual path or journey that they need to follow, and they will both be hugely successful in their own right. But it's sort of like your son will seek the limelight more in the direction that his work will take him, where your daughter is not, that's not important to her. Do you know what I mean? She'd rather fly under the radar and just do what she does and not looking or seeking any recognition for it. If it happens, that's fine, but let's get on to the next bit. So they're very different in that way, and yet they're still very close and similar in lots of ways. So, certain people, I believe, are destined to do certain things in their lives. That there's certain people that are destined for brilliance, and there's other people that are destined to just have a mediocre life. And it doesn't make us any better a person. It just means by following what is our real path and what we should be doing is our greatest success. And, you're playing your part in raising these children. So, Michelle, that's where I've got to leave it, because I've got to move on to our next caller. But I wish you well, and I know your son will get into the school. So we're going to talk with Bonnie in Manchester now in England. Are you there, Bonnie?
Yeah, I'm there.
Do you have a question I can work with, please, Bonnie?
Pardon?
Do you have a question I can answer for you, sweetie?
No, not really. Just things going to get better, really. That's it, really.
Okay, well, that's a very real question this day and age, Bonnie, and I appreciate that you guys have been through so many changes over there and so many lockdowns and opens up. I'm sure you're getting quite sick of it now. But for you personally, I do feel by June things are going to really sort of open up. It's like between now and then, it's about putting out to the universe what it is that you want to achieve or what it is that you're hoping to attract in your life. It's not just because of COVID have things been difficult for you. That's sort of just amplified, I think, the changes that have been going on in your life and sort of added a few more layers of restriction there, but it hasn't been the whole reason why you sort of feel that nothing is moving, nothing is changing in the direction that you want it to. There's certain times in our lives, Bonnie, where our lives do sort of slow down almost to a nothingness while we sort of sort a few things out and then we start to go again. Well, you're like the engine at the station. It's just starting to build up some momentum. It's just starting to build up some traction to be able to leave the station and start to take off to the, hurdle down the tracks. So just think of your life as being like that. You've been sitting at the station for some time. You've allowed things to get on and off in your life. We're now ready to ramp up the engine so we can slowly start to build the momentum up again. Has there been a bit of loss in your life in this last 12 months too? Not necessarily loss of people as in death, but losses of or changes of things that you never thought would come to an end.
Yeah.
That's almost over now. Look, there might be one tiny little thing to go, but it's like I want to say, oh, thank God for that. I can breathe again now. It's sort of almost like you felt you couldn't look forward to anything because it was like, what next? Well, those days are now starting to come to an end. I think as we get towards June, things will slowly start to improve. And then from June to the end of the year, things start really taking off in a very, very fast fashion. And I can see you starting to have a smile on your face. You've got energy back again. You're starting to feel as if life is starting to move in the direction that you want it to. Have you made changes to where you're living, or are you planning on moving?
I'm not planning on moving, no. I've just moved.
Right.
I'm actually doing the house up and that.
Okay, but are you still changing things within the residence, like getting things the way that you want them to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they show me that symbol as being either change of residence or changing things within the home. To me, that's almost complete now too. It's sort of like, as much as that seems to have dragged on, I think that's been therapeutic because while you've been, fixing something up or changing something where you're living, it's given you an opportunity to take your mind off how difficult things have been. And it's like you've been able to put your energy into that sort of something that you can see that you can achieve that's an achievement. And that's, in a sense, what's kept you going. I feel like I want to cry for you, Bonnie. And I don't mean cry because I feel sorry for you. It's like I want to cry for you to release a lot of emotion where people have let you down. Is that what you've been experiencing too? Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I sort of feel if I start crying, I don't know whether I'm going to stop or whether I'm going to be able to control it. I mean, you would, but what I'm saying is that's just what they're showing me. It's like there's been just so much emotion I've had to release or let go of or sort of say, well, I couldn't have done anything different. There wouldn't have been a different result even if I'd done something different, that like this is the way it was meant to be. And that's made it difficult, I think, for you to come to terms with and accept because I'm not saying you're a control freak, Bonnie. What I'm saying is you sort of, we tend to sort of think if we do good things in life, we should attract good things because that's what we're taught to believe. You do good things and it's like somebody comes along and punches you in the face. And you think, well, why? Why did I deserve that when I've done nothing wrong or I've done nothing to hurt somebody? And, darling, the only answer I can put on that is it's like repaying karma from another lifetime. It's like this is, you repaying the debt from something that you might have done 3 lifetimes ago. And if you can look at it that way and know that everything that you've done that's been good in this lifetime will be rewarded, and it will be rewarded in this lifetime too. Karma is a bit like a debt. We've got to keep repaying it until the balance sheet is clear. Now, what they're showing me is your balance sheet is almost clear. So I'm taking that from June onwards that you'll start to go into karmic credit where you'll start to see good things start to come back to you in a very, very quick way. So it's like just hang on till then, just keep just putting one foot in front of the other. Don't think too far ahead unless, your mind's starting to take you that way, but don't force it. Let's just keep taking one day at a time and we'll start to see things improve. And certainly finances this year are going to be one of those things that's going to start to really improve because it was just, you just never seemed to be able to catch up. was sort of, as you saw, the
No.
finish line was close, something else came in bigger and better than the last one. And it's like, geez, how many more things can I go through? Well, you really should give yourself a packet of gold stars because you've done exceptionally well. A lot of other people would have given up a lot quicker with a lot less than what you've been through. It's like you've condensed 5 lifetimes in the last 12 months with the things that you've had to deal with emotionally and work through and let go of and whatever. And it's like, no wonder you feel tired. And you're tired on every level is what I'm saying. So, if you can sit down for 5 minutes or watch a movie or something, take the time and look after yourself. So that's where we're going to leave Bonnie now in Manchester. It has been a difficult year for most people and, right around the world. There's nobody that's had it any tougher than everybody's had their own journey, their own story to tell. But let's all look forward to a much brighter, positive 12 months. And I just want to take the time before the end of the show to wish one of my producers a very, very happy birthday, to the darling Connie, who is the glue that keeps this show together and finds the new hosts, and she has a wonderful, loving husband that she works with and an amazing team of people as well. But without Connie, I don't think this show would be as successful as it is, and the network wouldn't be as successful as it is, because Connie's just such a sweetie and she's so supportive, and she looks for the world's best, psychics, healers, people that have got a message to share with everybody. So happy birthday, Connie, and many, many more to come. You're such a beautiful angel. So until next week, I hope everybody has an absolutely sensational, amazing week. And don't forget, feed your soul in some way. If you can get out into nature and sit by the lake or the beach or go into and hug a tree, then do that. Until next week, bye for now. And don't forget, enjoy the Pisces time of the year. You'll meet Mr. Pisces on the back of our set. Bye for now.